One thing about pet ownership, it is a lifelong commitment. You may be here for a long time, they're only here for a short time, so make sure they're the best years of their lives. The best years of their lives. Whoa, 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 whoa. And it doesn't matter what pet you're raising. It doesn't matter if you're a single individual, a couple that doesn't want kids, but wants a loving, caring individual, just somebody you can call their fur baby and spoil them. It doesn't matter if you're living with friends, living with complete strangers, or you have kids and you want the kids to see what a rewarding, loving, caring animal can do for a family environment. But you want to make sure you take care of that pet. Doesn't matter if it's a rabbit, doesn't matter if it's a cat, or in the case of a dog, you want to make sure you keep them on a lead, because otherwise you could end up with the same problems as A Family in Blood, directed by Brad Anderson. Anderson, that's me, who directed Session 9, The Call with Halle Berry. How Halle Berry got in a WWE produced film, I'll never know, but Halle Berry is terrific. Halle Berry is not in this, nor was she in Vanishing on 7th Street. Remember Vanishing on 7th Street? You shouldn't. It was shit with a good concept. Also, he did Beirut. Oh, congratulations, Frank. We all heard about what you did in Beirut. No, not to be confused with the Naked Gun movies. Oh boy, that was a whole lot of fun. But Frank Drebin is not in this because Leslie Nielsen has not been alive for a number of years. And also Fractured and various episodes of TV. And this was written by Will Hunley, who did Bloodline, not to be confused with the WWE storyline of The Bloodline. If you are not a WWE fan, you have no idea what I'm talking about. And Escape Room 2. Yes, we actually did a sequel to this Boogaloo. We have Michelle Monaghan as a recovering addict who is trying to raise her children properly. And also Skeet Ulrich is the dad where they want to raise their kids right, but they're divorced. Yes, and Skeet Ulrich, yes, Billy Loomis from the first Scream qualifies as a dad now. He is dad age. Time is a cruel mistress. And basically, after separating, because you got to keep them separated, hey, they move outside of town to a cabin lost in time, but hey, the kids go out to play. Okay, enough song references. Basically, Jess, Michelle's character, she is a recovering addict. She's trying to help her children have a good environment. There's the son Tyler, and I wrote these names down. Skylar Morgan Jones, which sounds like a name way too snooty to be in a film like this. And Owen, the younger son, his name's Finley, and he loves to fight. But Finley, Wojtek, his song, if I mispronounce that in any way, I apologize. Like any children were or should be watching my channel. And basically they have a family dog. Well, one night in Bangkok makes a strong man crumble, but nevertheless, basically one day the kids and the dog go out. They are around this drained lake where it's very, very muddy, and there's this weird haunting tree because every cabin or farmland in the middle of nowhere needs to have a haunted tree somewhere. And the dog's barking at it. They need to not go near the tree, so naturally one night the dog escapes because he hears or sees something or whatever. Comes back sometimes later after being missing. Meanwhile, the parents are using divorce lawyers and kind of going at it and everything. Pat, Skeet Ulrich's character, is going to war to try and have more custody of the kids. He doesn't just want to have them for a couple weekends a month, joint custody. And also, apparently, while Jess was in rehab, he was banging the nanny. Okay, we could have gotten Jude Law for this to talk about typecasting, but, well, this is going well. Anybody remembering the Jude Law stuff? Yeah, let's just say that celebrity, scandals are more interesting than the rest of the stuff that happens in this movie. Essentially, what happens is the dog comes back. He has glowy eyes like he's Cujo, except Cujo was more grounded in reality somehow, and was also a more terrifying dog. Ends up biting Owen, and Owen has some kind of infection where he develops a thirst for blood, and then Jess, who is also a nurse, just keeps trying to come up with ways to save her son and figure out if she can cure him because she's Dr. Mario. She's got the cure. Okay, so that's pretty much the movie right there. He develops a taste for blood, and she comes up with more convoluted ways to feed and satiate his thirst for blood. Unfortunately, the way I describe this is a lot more interesting in how it plays out. Let me just say that Brad Anderson has directed some fairly decent movies, and also Vanishing on 7th Street. And Michelle is a terrific actress. Skeet Ulrich also, I think, kind of got pushed by the wayside when he's really not that bad either. And the kids are all right. unlike what the Offspring said for the Faculty soundtrack. But this ends up just being something that is campy at times and not logical. It reminded me of The Swarm, no, not nearly as egregious. That I think it was French. It was French or Spanish. Forget what, but it was a really, really bad locust-based movie. And there were times where this movie reminded me of that. And it just ends up. Michelle is way better in this material. Skeet is way better in this material. They stretch a lot of this shit out. Like it feels jumbled and also feels stretched out in parts. It feels like it's trying to go in a few different directions, be like a few different things. Like, oh, could it be about just an infection? Could it be about vampirism? What could it be actually be about? Could it be a family drama? Like, it could have a whole bunch of stuff. It could be all these things thrown in a blender, human centipede together, and that's pretty much what it is. It doesn't end up being anything particularly good. Everything's half baked, and a lot of this shit's really annoying because you just end up laughing at a lot of it. Again, Michelle is better than this material. Skeet Ulrich is better than this material. And I just wish that if they would have picked one focus and gone with it. Because when you try to go in a few different directions and you don't flesh enough of those ideas out, or some of those ideas aren't very good and shouldn't be fleshed out, you end up with a movie that just ends up spiraling out of control and doesn't utilize its actors to very good use. Yes, the isolated area and the fact that, oh, it's unseen what's actually causing all this stuff, like what caused Owen to basically snap, like, oh my god, what caused the dog to snap and what got past to him. Do we ever discover this? If you do, let me know. I mean, I didn't necessarily care, and you could have, a sight unseen evil and actually make it interesting, but this movie did not make itself very interesting. And it goes bonkers in the second half. And not bonkers in a good way, bonkers in a, well, they are just stumbling along. It's also almost an hour and 50 minutes. And this movie had enough material maybe for 25 minutes less of that, about 83 minutes tops. It could have been a nice, tightly compact one. It could have not gone in so many different directions and had a more central focus, and maybe it would have been fine. It didn't pick that focus, and it ended up being not very good. Not very good at all. So I am going to get into spoilers here, just so you know. But it's on Amazon for a few bucks. Yes, I pay for it. Even if I end up not liking a movie or hating a movie in this case, it ends up being something that it ends up being something that I want to support, because people deserve to get paid, even if it's just a few bucks, whatever. It's just money. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I don't pirate these movies. You do, just don't tell me, because I don't understand why people would do that. Let's just support the artists, because then more movies could be made, and maybe better movies will be made than this. That being said, Blood really doesn't get a recommendation. 3, 2, 1. Spoilers. Okay, so Jess is a nurse. She ends up finding out that blood satiates her son. She ends up marking some blood packs as damaged. In this small hospital that somehow has an endless supply of blood, she keeps feeding them the blood, feeding them the blood. Nobody notices the missing packs until a little bit later, and then she ends up buying pets and ends up killing rabbits. Now, she took the Elmer Fudd route to kill the wabbit, and they don't show it on camera. I hate animal violence. I hate it. That's the one thing I hate about The Innocents, but I love The Innocents. I did not love Blood. And yeah, I mean, I've had a few pet bunny rabbits, and if I ever even got near to yelling at them, I felt bad. Never mind hurting them physically. But yeah, she decides to use her own blood, like the lady in The Swarm used for, for the locust that feasted on blood. Yes, that was actually something that happened. And so now it's like, oh, is she using again because the husband's coming around to try and, take more custody of the kid. The kids, that is. The daughter is completely unaware of this until halfway through, proving the daughter is a complete goddamn idiot. At one point earlier in the movie, Jess is talking to this one woman named Miss Osgood, or Helen, who is dying, and she realizes sometime later, hey, wait a second. Human blood works, animal blood doesn't work. Let me take her, since she's being checked out of the hospital, let me have her as a victim in my basement, tied up where I can just take blood out of her, and I can feed her and love her and squeeze her, and Owen can call her George, the blood bank. It just ends up being so stupid, and I mean, and I get where they were going with it. I do. I'm not faulting the effort, but I will fault the execution because the execution proved that this movie probably should have been executed rather than filmed. And the police investigate the missing person, and then they just vanish. And all this stuff starts happening in the last number of minutes. Suddenly, you know, suddenly Jess remembers, oh yeah, there's this lake, this empty lake or whatever with this tree. I probably should have gone and investigated, the lake, the empty lake with the tree that's literally about 50 feet from my house. But nevertheless, the kids end up getting taken to the house, the dad's house that is, and Owen ends up killing the lady just before because she escapes, Miss Osgood, because she gets trapped on this barbed wire fence. And Jess buries the evidence, but then the family shows up or the dad shows up at Child Protective Services because the kids haven't been in school, especially Owen. Sizable leaps in logic end up leading us to, the dad having them at the house. There's a baby that the nanny has that I assume Pat Skeet Ulrich fathered. And Owen's going to attack the kid, but no, Tyler says, don't do that. Yes, the girl's actually named Tyler, but nevertheless. They go back to this tree area. They somehow manage, they apparently live close enough where they can just bike there. Somehow. And what ends up happening is Zadar is going to try to burn the tree, or try to destroy the tree, but then Owen attacks her. And then Jess runs out, and Owen ends up in the mud because his name is Mud. And then he ends up sinking into the mud because it's not Owen. And then basically Tyler ends up in the custody of the dad because of all this stuff, the negligence and all that. Jess gets accused of Munchausen by proxy, keeping the child sick just to have sympathy and everything and do all that. Which, yeah, maybe if they had gone that route, it would have been that, but then it would have been Run, and I hated Run. Fuck Run. It was a terrible usage of a couple people, let's just say that. And then we end the movie. Oh yes, and then we have a mid-credit sequence where she has a dog named Jericho, and the dog is in the woods. After she burned the tree, by the way, Jess decided to burn the tree. We should have tried this 20 blood packs ago. The movie ends, and then she has the mid-credit scene with the dog where she's throwing stuff, and then the dog's all growling and whining because something's in the woods. It got out. F. It's an F. I'm sorry. It just like the decent cast and the decent concept, the poor execution. This was really bad. F. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm Charlie Maitland. I'll see you soon.